You keep meeting romantic partners who can't meet you. And it's starting to feel like a cruel joke. But that pattern isn't random, and it's in your power to change. Hello, my loves. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Lorena. I'm a somatic self-concept and identity coach, and I support women in bridging the gap between how they currently see themselves and who they desire to be or become. Because this enables you to break even the most persistent patterns, to stop repeating the same cycles, and to finally step into the identity and the reality that you desire and deserve. In today's video, we're going to break down all things attracting emotionally unavailable people. We'll dive into how to change your relationship patterns, even if the patterns you currently have been following you for years or maybe even decades. And we'll explore how to align with the self-concept of someone who's actually available for love and who's able to receive it. So most women date the same men or people, depending on who you're attracted to, over and over again. Let's say you start seeing someone. Maybe it looks promising, or maybe it feels like that person is dangling a carrot in front of you, but they never really commit. Or maybe they do commit, but you're in fear the whole time. Maybe you actually believe they're the one, but possibly after some time you experience the same version of a dynamic that has been familiar to you all along. Maybe they don't commit or they do commit, but you still feel like there's a sense of detachment or avoidance. You still feel that that person isn't fully open to the type of relationship that you are really craving. Maybe you're feeling like you are giving more to the connection than they are. And it can make you wonder, why is it so hard for you to find someone who loves you the way you love? The issue with this pattern is that it feels like a vicious loop. Because even when you end the relationship, or it is ended for you, or maybe it never goes anywhere in the first place, it still doesn't feel like that chapter is closed. Because the next person you meet mirrors the same pattern back to you. Another emotionally unavailable person. Leave a comment below if any of these versions sound familiar to you, and if so, which one. If you've ever felt that the same person keeps showing up just with a different face and a different name. I've definitely been there. And it's common because relationships are a mirror of your self-concept, especially romantic ones. If you see yourself as someone who attracts emotionally unavailable people, then that's exactly what will happen. And of course, if that has been your consistent experience, it's hard not to see yourself as someone who has that pattern. But if you expect the same pattern to reoccur, it will. And if you keep manifesting the same person with a different face, maybe it's not them. Maybe it's you. Now, in saying that, don't worry about this, because it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. In fact, if you feel that way because this pattern shows up, then that might be the very source of the problem. What it really means is that the self-concept that you are living from, the identity that you have built over the course of your life, often unconsciously, and often through external impressions like the environment you grew up in, or the people you surround yourself with, the experiences you've had, and the messages that were ingrained in you. That identity that you've built is available for this experience. Now, I want to break this identity down with you. What is the self-concept you likely have if you keep attracting emotionally unavailable people? Because it's easy to say it's your self-concept and you're the common denominator, but we need to dig a bit deeper so that you can actually start doing something about it. And there are a few hallmarks of the self-concept that you will have if you keep attracting emotionally unavailable people. And what I'm saying here is completely based on patterns that I have seen in my clients over the years, and they are very, very consistent. You might not have all of these identity pieces inside of you, but you will have some of them, maybe even all of them. The thing is, though, that you might not even be aware that these are parts of your self-concept, because our identity is so deeply embedded in us that we don't even know we see ourselves that way. That's why it's your identity. You don't question who you are when you get up in the morning, do you? The same way you don't tend to question these deeply embedded beliefs that you've held on to all your life that are sabotaging the very thing you want. We just assume that's who we are, equal to a name that you've had your entire life. So what self-concept do you have if you keep attracting emotionally unavailable people? Number one, you are emotionally unavailable yourself. Even if you say you're not, you might think you're available, but you're probably afraid of making yourself fully vulnerable out of fear of getting hurt. So you're attracting people who keep you at arm's length because in some way that's what you're doing with them too. It doesn't look the same way because for you it doesn't look like actively keeping physical distance or not starting relationships. For you, it might look like you're not fully authentic, or you are afraid that you won't be loved for who you really are, or you're trying to control the situation. It might look any of these ways or even a completely different way. But if you're attracting emotional unavailability, you're also not emotionally available. Number two, you self-abandon in relationships in an attempt to get love. I used to do this all the time. I used to abandon myself in an attempt to receive the love that I truly desired. And that can look like self-betrayal. It can look like people-pleasing. It's a huge trauma response. It's not your fault if you're in this pattern. It wasn't my fault, but I did have to do the work to heal it so that I would stop doing that and so that I would stop attracting people or versions of people that didn't align with the type of relationship that I really wanted. Number three, your brain is looking for a dopamine hit. And that is often more important to you than the actual end result you want, than the actual desire you have. So basically, this is about instant gratification over long-term desire. So your self-concept is rooted in urgency and needing things to happen fast. And that might not be something that you're consciously aware of or that you actively do. But if you get a little dopamine hit every time you notice a step in the right direction, maybe the person you're dating is a little bit more affectionate that day, or maybe you receive a text from them and your heart begins to flutter, that shows you that your dopamine is spiking. Your reward system is activated. You're getting a sense of validation from this. We all want validation, but what often happens is that you're unintentionally attracted to the highs and lows of the relationship rather than the peaceful, healthy love that you may think you want. Because that's not exciting. That doesn't always give you butterflies. And if you're unconsciously seeking instant gratification and little dopamine hits and likes and messages instead of the nourishing long-term relationship you want, it is often something rooted in familiarity and probably what you learned in childhood. Number four, there's a self-worth issue and often anxious attachment. Now, self-worth and your self-concept are deeply intertwined. Someone with a confident identity feels worthy of the things they want, provided it's authentic confidence, right? And if you're having some issues with your self-worth and often anxious attachment on top of that, you're seeking validation from someone outside of yourself. And that creates a perfect mirror. It's a perfect polarity point. You want more connection and you get people who want more space. Now, what does that lead to? You're getting more and more activated, more and more dysregulated in your nervous system, in your state of being. You're getting more and more stressed and anxious in your system, and you begin to regulate that through external validation, because temporarily it will make you calm. Temporarily, it does regulate you, right? If you feel stressed and anxious, and suddenly you get a text from the person you're into, you're gonna feel calm and relaxed for a moment. And then the cycle repeats. Now, I have changed this pattern myself, and I have a whole video about how I shifted from being very anxiously attached, self-abandoning in relationships, constantly betraying myself, to being very secure and not having this pattern at all anymore, not attracting people like this at all anymore. I will link it below so you can hear my story a little bit. And I've also had countless clients who have changed this pattern. So I want you to know that it doesn't matter how long you've been stuck in it yourself, you can change it. It does take time. It takes more than just being aware of it or just talk about it, but it can completely shift. As an example of that, let me share with you what happened to a long-term client of mine. Because when she came to me, she was so hung up on a specific person. And it wasn't really about that person anyway. Her pattern had been that she would always seek out men who just couldn't choose her. And we did a lot of work on her identity, a lot of healing and integration when it comes to her relational patterns, her expectations, her embodiment in dating, including the choices she made and the assumptions that she had going into meeting someone new or reconnecting with someone from the past. And then last year, she met someone who she now lives with and who treats her like the amazing woman she is. It was never even a question. The fact that he was completely open, very straightforward, actively choosing her, completely emotionally available, and in it for the long run, in it to build something, have a foundation of commitment and devotion and long-term goals, building a future together, that just shows you how much she has changed, that she was able to let that in and receive it. And it also really shows that it's possible to break even the most persistent patterns, including ones that have followed you for decades, because that has been the case for her too. She had never experienced a relationship like this before. It's so great to see her in a healthy relationship full of mutual respect, where both partners choose each other each day and every day. And I think that's what most of us want. At our core, we want to be loved. Now, in order to get to that place, one of the things she had to do was she had to work on her attachment patterns, including her attachment patterns that she had built up in childhood. And I have a free masterclass replay for you all about releasing attachment. It's called Liberate, and you can find it linked below. It's one of my favorite masterclasses, especially in the context of romantic relationships. And it dives into the identity piece of it too and gives you really tangible guidance. And of course, here's me saying it's very much possible for you and giving you examples of myself, of my clients. But let's face it, it can feel impossible when this pattern is all you've ever known. If you've never attracted someone into your life who is truly open and available, and who loves as hard and as openly as you do, then of course it feels like it'll never change. Or you might feel lost as to how to do it. And I don't want to sugarcoat it because it's not an overnight process. When I see shit in the manifestation community, like, manifest him to choose you instantly, I actually want to vomit. Primarily because, whether it works or not aside, if your self-concept isn't solid, if your relationship and attachment patterns haven't changed, they haven't resolved, if you're only attempting to change your thoughts on the surface, it doesn't even matter whether you manifest this or not, because it's not going to last. The fears will keep following you anyway, or maybe the pattern will manifest again, but just in a slightly different way. If you're unconsciously attempting to calm yourself down, to regulate your nervous system, to get rid of stress and fear and anxiety through being loved by someone else, then getting someone to choose you or commit to you is just as much of a temporary dopamine boost as receiving a text, the example I gave earlier. So your self-concept needs to change deeply. You need to become emotionally available. And because, as I said, your self-concept is primarily unconscious, working on your identity requires some digging. Not analyzing, but more of an excavation of your subconscious. That includes emotions and beliefs that you have pushed down, that you have repressed, that you're maybe even hiding from yourself. It includes parts of yourself that you haven't integrated or maybe aren't even aware exist. Maybe you're not aware of your emotional unavailability because it's not overt. It includes the experiences that made your heart contract and close up. It includes looking at these past relationships and processing what happened and processing your part in them. It includes the choices you make. For example, why you choose emotionally unavailable people in the first place. why you maybe even dismiss the ones who actually want to love you. And I don't want to hear that the people that actually want to love you aren't attractive, because you can have both. I have this belief too. I used to have this belief that I could only have one or the other. Either I could have someone really hot who would be emotionally unavailable, or I could have someone I wasn't attracted to who was ready to love me. That was my belief. But it's not true. It's not true. I have since gotten to learn that. And you can have both too. But you don't only need to change your beliefs about yourself and about your identity, you also need to change your beliefs about what's possible. Because you probably have some trust issues. You probably have some betrayal trauma if you've been in a pattern of consistently attracting emotionally unavailable people. And because of that, there's also a lot of trauma work that goes into the shift in your self-concept when it comes to being open to emotionally available people and manifesting someone who is emotionally available. Irrelevant if that is the person you're currently dating that gets to transform, or whether that is calling in someone new, that doesn't matter. We need to do some really deep trauma work, because the root of your pattern of attracting emotionally unavailable people, not being open to love, and having an unconscious or sometimes even uncontrollable need for external validation, that almost always comes from your childhood, which is why it's not your fault. You didn't have control over what happened to you in your childhood. But I find it also important to say that it's not always childhood trauma. Sometimes it's past relationship trauma, but wherever it comes from, we have to work on healing and integrating it. Otherwise, you're unconsciously choosing a reality where you keep replaying the past in order to change the future. Simply being aware of it is not enough. That's why just digging and digging in therapy can make you realize where things come from, but still you feel frozen to actually break the pattern. Or you feel like it's not in your power, it's not in your control who shows up in your life. You were never the problem, but you do hold the power. When you shift your self-concept to become someone who finds it natural to only align with people who are ready to love you, who are ready to meet you, who are ready to fully commit and be fully emotionally available, then you stop trying, you stop chasing love, you stop expecting to be disappointed, and you start receiving. You don't need to keep replaying the same pattern. You don't need to keep rewriting the same story. You get to write a new one. What's a pattern that you are ready to break in your relationships? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in next week's video. Have a lovely day.